Pop-up. The first thing I remember from that night is watching a Woody Allen movie on a borrowed TV. The girls had begged endlessly for their parents to buy a TV, but the parents stayed firm in their opposition. They didn't want their children wasting their days cooped up inside in front of an electronic box. Woody Allen, however, was deemed worthwhile. So when they heard his film, Sleeper, was to be the NBC Sunday night movie, the parents invited the neighbors to come watch it at their house and to bring a TV as well. They set up the television facing the couch, and the whole family, the neighbors, plus a few extra friends, of which there were always some around, watched. They turned off the lights, and everyone busted up laughing at the famous comedian's ingenious jokes. The girls, only 5 and 6 years old, didn't understand a thing. However, happy to actually be able to watch TV with their parents and not behind their backs at friends' houses, they insisted on staying up until the movie was over. They laughed with their parents and their friends, pretending to know why, hoping to affirm their maturity by showing that they understood grown-up things. They both fell asleep before the movie ended. When it was over, their parents carried them off to bed without waking them. They dreamed of the images they'd seen before falling asleep. A man dressed as a robot lost in the woods. A woman with a lot of makeup drinking water with her friends in a glass house. Dreamed until their dreams were interrupted. Suddenly their parents were stirring them awake. It was still dark, but the parents were completely dressed. Mommy had her purse. Something had happened, the girls were told, and Mommy had to go. Daddy would tell them about it in the morning. Still half asleep, they accepted their parents' kisses without questions and returned to their dreams. The next morning, the girls woke up with the sensation that something had happened, or that they had dreamt something but couldn't remember what. They got dressed and went downstairs to the kitchen. When they saw their father frying eggs for breakfast, they remembered that their mother had left during the night. Knots formed in their throats. "Where's Mommy?" they asked. Their father said he'd explain it all after breakfast. Nothing like this had ever happened before, and the girls could not calm their imaginations. "When will she be back? Why did she leave at night?" they asked between sobs. Their father realized that he couldn't wait until after breakfast. He turned off the stove and set the spatula down on the table. The three of them went into the backyard and sat down on a bench, one daughter on either side of their father. The father took off his glasses, took his daughter's hands into his, and began to cry. When they saw their father's tears slide down his cheeks and disappear into his beard, the girls cried too. They still didn't know what had happened, but they could feel his deep pain. With his arms around them, he said, "A terrible thing has happened. Last night, 2 men went into your grandparents' house. They shot Papa with a gun and killed him. That's why Mommy left. She's in Florida with Mama." He sighed and seemed to forget that he was speaking with his 5- and 6-year-old daughters. It's horrible to think that humanity can be so sick. Papa was a great man. That they could have done this to him. He couldn't finish his sentence. "Why did they do it, Daddy?" one of the girls asked. "I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know." "What about Mama? Is she okay?" "Mama is in the hospital because she's hurt. They stabbed her in the back." As he said these words, his voice broke and he buried his head in his hands. "But Mama is going to be okay," he assured them. They didn't ask any more questions. The truth is, the girls hardly knew their grandparents, who lived far away. They had been to visit, but not since the girls were quite little. Nonetheless, They cried their little eyes out, sitting there with their father. The entire family's suffering flooded their bodies. They imagined their mother in the hospital with their grandmother, bravely waiting for her wounds to heal. They imagined their grandfather, fat and pale in his coffin. They thought about how their mother must have felt when a voice on the telephone informed her of her father's murder. They thought about their aunts, who had also said goodbye to their kids in the middle of the night. Victims of a cruel attack that both debilitated and strengthened their family, the girls held hands. That physical contact joined them not only with each other, but with relatives they had never met, crying at the same time in distant parts of the country. Their grandfather's blood defied space and joined the hearts of a dispersed family. Some of them had only met him a couple of times, and like the girls, didn't know him well, if at all. But now that their aunts and uncles and cousins were all simultaneously living the same horrific reality, the girls felt a deep closeness to them all. For the girls, everything was so big, so far, so incredible, but at the same time so real. They didn't understand the tragedy the way the adults did. They simply felt the sadness and suffering caused by it. They listened to their father's words. The facts he spoke did not produce an image, but rather a feeling. Those facts only took on meaning many years later. At that moment, at that young age, they were incapable of assimilating it. They could only feel it. The girls and their father went back into the kitchen and ate breakfast. The girls walked to school where they learned and played just like any other day. But they both knew that something had changed forever. They had encountered death for the first time.